I put 2 of them in the oven.
My sister needs to be Baker acted, and she needs to talk to a sheriff's officer.
Why? I put 2 of them in the oven. Those 5 words came from a woman describing what she'd done to a man who'd trusted her with his money, his home, his life. When investigators found the stock pot in the woods, the coagulated human remains inside confirmed it. Body parts boiled in a kitchen, feet cooked in an oven until smoke filled the house, a phone buried and reanimated to fake a life that had already ended. Jimmy Sheaffer went missing on April 3, 2013. Everyone assumed he'd left for California. The truth was far more calculated and grotesque than anyone imagined. Not only was the identity of his killer unthinkable, so was the discovery that his remains had been scattered and cooked across multiple sites. But this story begins with a simple favor at 4 in the morning. Welcome back. Before the story continues, drop a quick comment for me. What time is it where you are right now? Morning coffee or late night listening? I'm really glad you're part of this moment. Just a quick note. This story includes some fictionalized details added to highlight the lesson. What matters most is the message it carries. At 4 in the morning, in a supermarket parking lot no one else would visit for hours, James Sheaffer handed over cash to the one person who controlled his money. The parking lot behind the Winn-Dixie in Deltona, Florida, was empty except for the 2 of them. Pre-dawn darkness softened the edges of the building, the air thick with the kind of humidity that clings to your skin even before the sun rises. James Sheaffer, 36, worked as a limousine driver and depended on others to manage his disability checks. Angela Stoldt, 40, lived across the street and served as payee for his Social Security disability benefits. She controlled the account. She made the deposits. And on this particular morning, she was about to receive $150 in cash. "Here's the $150, he said. Angela took the bills without ceremony. "I'll get it deposited in the morning." The transaction lasted less than 2 minutes. Routine, businesslike, the kind of exchange that happens when money has moved between the same 2 people enough times that neither one feels the need to count it twice. 12 hours earlier, Jimmy had kissed Candy Medina goodbye and left their home for a Tampa assignment. Candy lived with him and had learned not to worry when his work trips stretched past a day or 2. Multi-day limo jobs were normal at Blue Diamond Limousine. Jimmy had chauffeured trips that lasted 3, sometimes 4 days before. "I'll be back in a couple days, maybe 3, he told her. "Drive safe. Call when you can." He'd made this kind of trip before. No one had any reason to worry. Not yet. But now it was 4 in the morning, and Jimmy was handing over cash in a deserted parking lot to the woman who managed his money. He'd completed the Tampa job, turned in the receipts, collected his cut. And now he was splitting it with Angela before heading home. No one who knew Jimmy thought twice about the meeting or the message that followed. Later that morning, a text arrived from Jimmy's phone. Angela read it on her screen, the words appearing in that familiar blue bubble. "I can't get it. Keep the cash for yourself." The tone was calm, almost casual. Jimmy often changed plans. He owed money to multiple people. He borrowed from his father, from friends, from anyone who would lend. The idea that he couldn't come through on something, that he needed to back out to redirect funds, wasn't surprising to anyone who knew him. Candy saw the message. She didn't find it alarming. Neither did Thomas, Jimmy's father, when Angela mentioned it to him later. The message sat on Angela's phone screen, its tone perfectly ordinary. No one questioned it. No one wondered why a man hiding from trouble would sound so calm. And no one knew it would be the last thing Jimmy Sheaffer's phone would ever say. By the afternoon, Jimmy was supposed to return for his next assignment. Candy's unease had hardened into fear. She called his boss. The answer made her stomach drop. He turned in the money 2 days ago. Haven't seen him since. Jimmy had finished the Tampa job, collected his pay, and then vanished. He was supposed to be back that afternoon. He hadn't shown. He hadn't called. Candy dialed Thomas Sheaffer next. Thomas had reportedly taken out loans to help his son with money troubles and spoke with him regularly. If anyone would know where Jimmy was, it would be his father. Thomas, have you heard from Jimmy? He's not answering. Thomas hadn't heard from him in days. I'll call the sheriff's office right now. That same afternoon, Thomas filed a missing person report. The investigation began, and almost immediately, police made contact with Angela. She was Jimmy's payee. She was his neighbor. She'd seen him the morning he disappeared. She had text messages from his phone. She became one of the most cooperative witnesses in the case. Every day, for more than a week, officers called Angela. Every day, she answered. She showed them the text messages, the one where Jimmy said to keep the cash. She mentioned the Winn-Dixie meeting. I saw him that morning behind the Winn-Dixie. He seemed fine. She handed over her phone so investigators could photograph the messages. Here, you can look at the texts. He said to keep the cash. She offered theories. Maybe Jimmy was hiding. Maybe he owed the wrong people. Maybe he was trying to disappear. Maybe he's with friends. He mentioned needing to lay low. How many times can you answer the same questions with the same concerned expression before someone notices you're performing? Angela never missed a call, never hesitated, never appeared anything other than willing to help. While Candy grew more desperate and Thomas hired a private investigator with money he didn't have, Angela remained the steady, cooperative neighbor who answered every question the same way. Phones record the message. They don't record who was holding the device when it was sent. What Angela didn't tell police was that Jimmy's phone was buried in her yard, wrapped in a plastic bag, hidden in the dirt behind her house. Every few days, she dug it up, slid the battery back into place, waited just long enough for the phone to ping a cell tower to register on the network as active. Then she pulled the battery out, sealed the bag, and buried it again. The phone created the illusion that Jimmy was alive, that he was moving, that somewhere in Florida, he was still out there. She answered every question they asked. She showed them every text message. What she never mentioned was the phone buried in her yard, or the dirt still under her fingernails from the last time she dug it up. The interrogation room at the Volusia County Sheriff's Office was small enough that Investigator A. J. Pagliari could see Angela's hands weren't shaking. Pagliari had spent years reading body language in interrogation rooms and recognized when someone was working too hard to appear cooperative. Angela sat across from him wearing dark sunglasses despite the fluorescent lights overhead. Her posture was rigid, unnaturally still. Most people fidget when they're nervous. They shift in their seats. They touch their faces, cross and uncross their arms. Angela did none of that. She answered every question the same way she'd answered them on the phone. Calm, steady, cooperative. He told me about getting drugs for people, but he didn't go into detail. Pagliari wrote it down. Jimmy was involved in drug deals. That was her theory. Someone came after him for money, for product, for something.
Like I said, he's told me about getting drugs for people, but he's not really gone into detail.
Jimmy owed a lot of people money. Maybe someone came looking for him. She offered possibilities. She speculated. She kept her hands flat on the table and her voice even. I'm just trying to help. I want to find him too. But the sunglasses stayed on, and behind them, Pagliari couldn't see her eyes. He asked to see her phone again. She handed it over without hesitation. He scrolled through the text messages slowly this time, not just photographing them, but reading the timestamps, the sequence, the flow of conversation. Something was wrong. These messages don't line up. Did you delete conversations? Angela's face didn't change. I don't know. Maybe my phone glitched. Pagliari kept scrolling. Conversations jumped out of sequence. A message from April 5th appeared before one from April 3rd. Entire threads seemed to be missing. Gaps where exchanges should have been. The timestamps didn't align with the story Angela had been telling. It just doesn't make sense how they're out of order. The absence of movement can be more telling than any gesture. Angela sat perfectly still. She offered no explanation beyond the glitch theory. She didn't lean forward to look at the screen, didn't ask to see what he was seeing. Most people, when confronted with evidence their phone isn't working correctly, want to understand what's wrong. Angela didn't. Does that sound like confusion or control? Pagliari handed the phone back. He asked a few more questions. Angela answered them all. She never wavered, never stumbled, never showed anything other than the same practiced concern she'd been showing for over a week. When the interview ended, Angela stood, collected her phone, and left. Pagliari stayed in the room and reviewed his notes. Her body language was wrong, too controlled, too rehearsed. No genuine distress, no real fear for Jimmy's safety. The sunglasses had kept her eyes hidden through the entire conversation and the text messages. Someone had been deleting threads, rearranging conversations, manipulating the timeline. He didn't have enough to hold her. He didn't have probable cause for an arrest, but he'd interrogated enough liars to know when someone was performing. Angela Stoldt had been too calm, too prepared, too willing to offer theories about everyone except herself. He didn't have proof yet, but he knew. Pagliari spread the phone records across his desk. 3 weeks of Jimmy Sheaffer's supposed movements, all traced through cell tower pings that told a story that didn't quite make sense. Jimmy's phone had pinged towers near Angela's apartment on April 3rd, the day he supposedly left for California. Then nothing for hours. Then a burst of activity near Interstate 70 heading west. Then silence. The pattern felt wrong. Jimmy had been texting constantly in the days before he vanished, arranging his trip, coordinating with Angela, making plans. Then the messages stopped, replaced by a handful of texts that read like someone trying to sound like Jimmy rather than Jimmy himself. "Look at this," Pagliari told his partner, pointing to a cluster of pings. His phone's supposedly in Colorado on April 5th, but there's no credit card activity, no gas station receipts, nothing. A guy doesn't drive halfway across the country without leaving a paper trail. They brought Angela back in on April 18th. This time, there was no pretense of routine follow-up. Pagliari laid out the phone records, the sunglasses at the pawn shop, the text messages that felt staged. He watched her face for cracks. "Your story doesn't match the evidence," he said. Angela's expression didn't change. "I don't know what you want me to say. I told you what happened. You told us Jimmy left." But his phone's behavior suggests something else entirely. Phones can be wrong, or people can be lying. Angela stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. "If you think I did something, arrest me. Otherwise, I'm leaving." Pagliari had nothing to arrest her with. No body, no confession, no witness placing her at a crime scene. Just a collection of inconsistencies that pointed toward guilt without proving it. She walked out. Here's what every detective knows. The space between knowing and proving is where cases go to die. You can feel the truth in your bones, see it in the pattern of lies, smell it in the air when someone's story doesn't add up. But feelings aren't evidence. Patterns aren't proof. And suspicion, no matter how strong, doesn't hold up in court. Pagliari knew Angela Stoldt had done something to Jimmy Sheaffer. He just couldn't prove it. 2 more weeks passed. Jimmy's family called every other day, desperate for updates. His bank account remained untouched. His California job offer expired. His friends heard nothing. The man had vanished as completely as if he'd never existed, leaving behind only a girlfriend who insisted he'd abandoned her and a detective who knew better. The case went cold, not because the leads ran out, but because every lead pointed to the same person who refused to break. Angela went back to work, back to her routine, back to her life. If she was worried about the investigation, she didn't show it. Pagliari kept the file on his desk anyway. Sometimes cases need something from outside the investigation to crack them open. A witness who didn't know they saw something important. a piece of evidence that surfaces months later, a family member who refuses to let the silence stand. For Jimmy Sheaffer's case, that break would come from the last person anyone expected. At 4 in the morning on April 21st, 18 days after Jimmy vanished, a 911 call came in from an address investigators knew well. But the caller wasn't Angela, it was April, Angela's sister, who had walked into a confession that would haunt her for life.
My sister needs to be Baker acted, and she needs to talk to a sheriff's officer.
Why does she need to be Baker acted?
She has pills, and she's threatening to take them, and
April found Angela crying at their parents' house, holding pills, telling them she'd committed a crime and couldn't live with it anymore. "I did something terrible," Angela said. "They're going to find out." Her children sat on the couch, confused. Angela knelt beside them, tears streaming, holding them like she'd never see them again. "I need you to take care of my kids," she told her parents. "I can't anymore." "What are you talking about?" Angela didn't answer, just kept apologizing. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for all of it." She wouldn't specify what crime, only that police were investigating it. The pills in her hand weren't a prop. She was ready to use them if someone didn't stop her. April stepped outside and called 911. The 911 dispatcher who took April's call had handled suicide threats before, but the crime confession made this different. "My sister needs to be Baker acted," April said. "She needs to talk to a sheriff's officer." "What's happening with your sister?" "She has pills, and she's admitted to a crime." "What type of crime?" April hesitated. She knew or suspected the missing boyfriend. The weeks of lies, the detective who kept coming back. "I really don't want to talk about it anymore," she said. "Just send someone. Please, before I tell you what happened next, are you still with me?" Comment A if April did the right thing by calling, or B if she should have kept the secret, and add one reason why. A quick note. What comes next includes recreated dialogue for emotional impact. The lesson is what matters. The recording would become evidence, April's voice breaking, Angela's confession in the background unmistakable. 3 weeks of perfect performance, undone by guilt in a single morning. Officers arrived within the hour. Angela was still crying, still holding the pills. When she saw the uniforms, she shifted immediately to self-preservation. "I need a lawyer," she said. "I want a lawyer." But she wasn't under arrest. Under Florida's Baker Act, she could be detained for psychiatric evaluation if she posed a danger to herself or others. Angela qualified on both counts. "Ma'am, we're taking you for evaluation," one officer said. "You're not under arrest." Angela kept crying as they escorted her out, kept apologizing, kept saying she was sorry, like it might undo what she'd done. Her parents held her children in the doorway. April watched, wondering if she'd just saved her sister or destroyed her. Pagliari got the call within the hour. The woman who'd walked out of 2 interrogations had confessed to her family. She was in custody, asking for a lawyer. But the crisis center reported she was still talking. What she said next would make everything before it look almost gentle. The investigators had been right. She knew where Jimmy was. She was about to tell them exactly what she'd done.
And I said, "How does it feel to be lied to, Jimmy?"
After psychiatric evaluation deemed her mentally competent, Angela was moved to a room at the crisis center where Pagliari was waiting. She waived her Miranda rights. The woman who demanded a lawyer now wanted to confess. Angela Stoldt's voice was steady when she told him how much Flexeril she'd put in Jimmy's drink, enough that he wouldn't be able to fight back. April 3rd had started with a lie. She told Jimmy her dying father would give him $4,000. All he had to do was come with her to pick it up. "I told him my dad would give him the $4,000, she said. They shared drinks before they left, vodka and peach schnapps. Jimmy knew there was Flexeril in the mix. What he didn't know was how much she'd added. "I put Flexeril in the drinks," she told Pagliari. He knew there was Flexeril, but I put extra. By the time they got in her car, Jimmy was feeling the effects. She drove him to Austin Cemetery. We had about 15 minutes before he thought my dad would wake up, she said. Investigator Brady, who had initially processed Angela under the Baker Act, stood outside the interview room. She'd heard Angela whisper earlier, police should have searched her house the first day. Now she understood why. At the cemetery, Angela revealed the truth. There was no money. She'd lied to get Jimmy alone and incapacitated. How's it feel to be lied to, Jimmy? She'd asked him. Jimmy threatened her, told her he was going to kill her, she claimed. So she killed him first. She stabbed him in the eye with an ice pick. Then, using a cable device threaded through PVC pipes, she strangled him until he stopped moving. A tremendous weight had been lifted, she told Pagliari, as if confession was relief rather than admission of murder. Even after he was dead, she wasn't certain, so she stabbed his other eye. I stabbed his other eye just to make sure he was dead, she said. Pagliari had heard confessions before, but this precision was different. No tears, no remorse, just facts delivered in sequence. But one piece didn't make sense: the phone. Jimmy's phone had pinged cell towers for weeks after he died, suggesting he was alive and moving. How? Angela explained. She'd buried his phone in her yard in a plastic bag. Every few days, she dug it up. I dug up his phone every so often and put the battery back in, she said, long enough to ping the nearest tower. Then she'd pull the battery out and bury it again. Just long enough to ping. Then I'd bury it again. The phone that had convinced investigators Jimmy might still be alive had been dead the whole time, lying buried in her backyard while she controlled where it seemed to travel. I wanted them to think he was still alive, still using his phone, she said. 3 weeks of investigation, unraveled in one afternoon. She described exactly how Jimmy Sheaffer died. The drugging, the deception, the murder, the phone buried in her yard. It was far from the last thing she'd admit to that day. What came next would be worse. Pagliari asked Angela to stand up, not just to describe what happened in the car, but to show him exactly where her hands were, exactly how it worked. She stood without hesitation. The woman who'd been crying hours earlier was gone. Angela positioned Pagliari in a chair as if he were Jimmy in the passenger seat of her car. She described the cemetery scene. Jimmy realizing there was no money, becoming irate, threatening her. He put his thumb right here on my shoulder. Like this, she said, demonstrating the pressure point Jimmy had used. That's when she reached behind into the camping gear in the back seat. I just grabbed the first thing I could reach, she said. It was an ice pick. She'd thought it was a screwdriver in that moment, but when she swung it forward, she realized what she had. I stuck it in his right eye, she said, demonstrating the angle and motion. The detail was specific. The demonstration, calm. No tears, no distress. Just a woman showing investigators how she'd killed someone. Then came the cable device. Angela described it as a DIY climbing tool. A long cable with sections of PVC pipe on each end as handles. She'd brought it that morning. She mimed holding both pieces of PVC pipe, one in each hand. I had each piece of the PVC, and I put my feet up like this, she said, demonstrating how she'd braced her feet against Jimmy's torso in the passenger seat. The cable went around his neck. She pulled the handles toward herself while pushing against him with her legs. I used my legs to push him back while I pulled, she explained. The physics were brutal. Her body working against him, the cable cutting off his air. He was making horrible noises, kicking, she said. She moved through the reenactment like someone describing how to change a tire. Even after the strangulation, Angela said she wasn't certain Jimmy was dead. His body had gone still, but she needed to be sure. She took the ice pick from his right eye and positioned it over his left eye. I just stabbed the other eye to make sure he was dead, she said. She twisted it, made certain he was gone, Then came the practical matter of transportation. She needed to move his body without leaving blood in her car. I wrapped his head in saran wrap so the blood wouldn't get in my car, she explained. The ice pick was still protruding from his left eye socket when she wrapped the plastic around his head. The pick was still sticking out when I wrapped his head, she said. Pagliari had heard confessions before. He'd interviewed killers who cried, who justified their actions, who broke down. Angela did none of those things. She demonstrated the murder with precision. The confession was on tape. Angela had just physically demonstrated, step by step, how she killed Jimmy Sheaffer. The ice pick to the right eye, the cable device around his neck, the second stab to the left eye. To make certain, Pagliari had it all recorded. What he didn't have yet was the body. Angela was about to take them to it. Angela told Pagliari she would show them where everything was, the phone, the clothing, the parts of Jimmy she tried to make disappear. Over the next hours, she led investigators to multiple sites across Deltona. Each location was precise. At Campbell Park, she walked them to a spot near the entrance sign and pointed at the ground. I buried it right here, just under the mulch, she said. Officers dug carefully. The phone was in a Ziploc bag, barely covered. The SIM card and battery were missing. She'd kept those separate to control when it pinged. At West Cryle Park, she directed them behind a dog waste receptacle. The ID is behind the dog waste station, she said. Jimmy's identification was there, right where she'd hidden it, along State Road 415, at a construction site. She pointed to a scrap metal pile. I threw the hacksaw in the scrap metal pile at the construction site, she said. The hacksaw she'd used to dismember him was recovered among the twisted metal. Each location was exact, no hesitation. Angela knew where she'd disposed of every piece of evidence. Then they went to Austin Cemetery, the place where Jimmy had died, the place where she'd hidden what remained. She led Pagliari into the woods beyond the graves, past the tree line. I put everything back here in the woods, she said. Dozens of black garbage bags were scattered along the tree line and deeper into the woods. Some were intact, others torn open by animals. Some of the bags, animals got into them, Angela said. Inside the torn bags, human remains, bones scattered by scavengers who dragged their contents through the woods, men's clothing matching what Jimmy wore, empty pool salt bags, empty BioClean bags, a box cutter wrapped in a blanket. Each bag officers opened revealed more horror, more bones, more evidence of systematic disposal. Even for officers who'd worked homicides for years, nothing prepares you for finding body parts someone tried to cook. Among the bags, investigators found a large stock pot tipped on its side. Inside, a yellow-brown pool of coagulated remains, gelatinous and discolored. A large bone, possibly a femur, protruded from the mass. Angela had tried to boil body parts in her kitchen. I put 2 of them in the oven, she said, referring to feet. She'd tried to cook feet in her oven until smoke filled the house. The stock pot was her second attempt. I was trying to cook it down to nothing, she explained. She'd wanted the remains to disappear completely. When that didn't work, she bagged everything and brought it to the cemetery. But not everything was accounted for. Pagliari asked about the head and torso, the largest part still missing. His head? Angela said. I don't remember what I did with it. She either didn't remember or wouldn't say. Either way, those parts were never found. Not in the cemetery woods. Not anywhere. Jimmy's head and torso were never among what they found. They never would be. What Angela had confessed with her mouth and demonstrated with her hands was now confirmed by bones, by bags, by a stock pot of human remains found in cemetery woods. The confession was complete. The evidence recovered, but justice still required a trial. 18 months after Angela's confession, a Walmart security camera image filled the courtroom screen. Angela Stoldt at 3:47 a.m. purchasing plastic wrap and blue rubber gloves hours before Jimmy Sheaffer died. The prosecutor systematically presented evidence showing Angela had purchased murder supplies across multiple calculated trips to Walmart. April 2nd, just 13 hours before the murder. Plastic wrap, blue rubber gloves, hacksaw blades, 40-pound bags of pool salt. These purchases were made 13 hours before James Sheaffer was killed, the prosecutor said. April 4th and 5th, after Jimmy was already dead. Concrete cleaning solution, ammonia, more supplies to cover her tracks. The jury watched footage from each trip. Angela pushing a shopping cart, her children with her on some trips, unaware they were shopping for murder equipment. The defendant brought her 14-year-old daughter on these shopping trips, the prosecutor said, letting that fact settle. The surveillance footage told a story Angela's self-defense claim couldn't explain. You don't buy pool salt to preserve a body in self-defense. You don't purchase hacksaw blades in a panic. This is not self-defense, the prosecutor said. This is premeditation. Then Angela's 14-year-old daughter took the stand. She'd been forced to carry the burden of her mother's confession for 18 months before this moment. She testified that her mother had confided the murder to her immediately after it happened, told her they'd picked Jimmy up from work that night, even though everyone else was told he'd left for California. My mom told me she killed Jimmy, the girl said, tears streaming down her face. She said she drugged him and killed him that night, she continued, her voice breaking. She described shopping trips to Walmart with her mother, buying supplies, the horror of knowing what they were for, but being too young to understand what to do. We were at Walmart, buying the stuff she used, she said. She said, the hardest witness for any jury to hear is always a child testifying against their own mother. Angela took the witness stand to defend herself. She changed her confession, contradicting what she'd told investigators on tape just days after the murder. I only stabbed one eye, she claimed. I don't remember doing the other. The prosecutor played her recorded confession. Angela's voice filled the courtroom, calm and matter-of-fact, describing both eyes. The ice pick to the right eye.
I put 2 of them in the oven.
The second stab to the left eye to make certain he was dead. The defendant's own recorded statement contradicts her testimony, the prosecutor said. The judge rejected Angela's stand-your-ground defense after reviewing the surveillance footage proving premeditation. The evidence was overwhelming. The confession detailed. The physical remains confirmed everything. December 5, 2014. Guilty on all counts. First-degree murder. Tampering with evidence. Mutilating a dead body. The judge delivered the sentence without hesitation. Life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Plus 20 years on the additional charges, running consecutive. Angela Stoldt would spend every remaining day of her life behind bars. Angela would spend the rest of her life in prison. The surveillance footage, her daughter's testimony, her own recorded confession, all of it had worked exactly as evidence is supposed to work. But one question from that night would never be answered. No one would ever know what happened to the rest of Jimmy Sheaffer. Angela Stoldt maintains her innocence to this day from a cell at Lowell Correctional Institution in Ocala, Florida, where she will remain for the rest of her life. The question that haunted the trial still haunts the case. Despite the confession, the physical reenactment, the evidence recovered from dozens of garbage bags scattered through the woods of Austin Cemetery, Jimmy Sheaffer's head and torso were never found. Angela claims she doesn't remember what she did with them. Investigators believe they were burned or boiled beyond recognition, destroyed in the same attempts that left only that stock pot of coagulated remains and scattered bones. That question will never be answered. Some absences are permanent. Thomas Sheaffer still lives in Florida. He still lives with the weight of those 3 weeks when he thought his son was just busy, just working, just out of touch the way limo drivers sometimes are. He has never stopped waiting for a phone call that was never going to come. For 3 weeks after Jimmy vanished, Thomas thought his son was on another limo trip, another multi-day job that meant silence and nothing to worry about. Jimmy's routine absences, those work trips that made everyone comfortable with his silence, became the very thing that let Angela hide his death for weeks. The job that kept Jimmy moving became the perfect cover story for why he'd stopped moving altogether. Jimmy Sheaffer was a man who trusted the people around him. The long trips he took for work, the money he borrowed when times were tight, the neighbor who managed his checks when he was out of town, all of it ordinary until it wasn't. He lived the kind of life where favors and trust kept things running smoothly. Trust is a currency that only has value until someone decides to spend it all at once. He handed Angela Stoldt $4,000 in cash in a supermarket parking lot at 4 in the morning on April 3, 2013. It was routine. Just another favor for someone he trusted with his finances, with his home, with access to his life. It was the last ordinary thing that happened to him. Within hours, she would drug him with Flexeril hidden in drinks, drive him to Austin Cemetery under the pretense of picking up money from her dying father, and kill him when he realized there was no dying father, no money from family, just a lie designed to get him alone and vulnerable. She kept his phone alive to prove he was still breathing. Every few days, digging it up from her backyard, sliding in the battery, letting it ping a cell tower before pulling the battery out and burying it again. The phone created the illusion of life, of movement, of Jimmy still out there somewhere. It fooled investigators for weeks. It kept his father waiting for a call that would never come. It became the thread that eventually unraveled everything. It was the only part of him police could actually trace back to her. Jimmy Sheaffer trusted the one person handling his money. It would take a phone that wouldn't stop ringing to prove why that trust was the last mistake he ever made. Jimmy Sheaffer's story ends not with answers, but with absence. The man who trusted easily, who helped when asked, who handed over $4,000 without hesitation, he deserved better than a cemetery woods and a stockpot of remains. What stays with you after a case like this isn't just the brutality, it's the ordinary moments that preceded it. The routine favors, the keys handed over, the phone calls that went unanswered while everyone assumed silence was normal. Jimmy's life was built on trust and generosity. The person who destroyed him weaponized both. Trust is necessary to live a full life. But this case reminds us that not everyone deserves it. The people closest to us, the ones we let handle our finances, enter our homes, know our routines, they hold power we sometimes forget to guard. Jimmy's tragedy wasn't that he trusted, it was that he trusted someone who had been planning his death while shopping for murder supplies with her children beside her. If this story moved you, or if you found yourself thinking about the people you trust in your own life, I'd truly appreciate it if you'd subscribe to this channel. Your comments mean more than you know. Leave your thoughts below. And if someone you care about needs to hear this story, share it with them. Thank you for walking through this case with me. This story is based on real events, the murder of Jimmy Sheaffer and the conviction of Angela Stoldt. Some scenes have been dramatized to illustrate the emotional weight of what happened. My deepest respect goes to Jimmy's family and loved ones who continue to live with this loss.